Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Hannah. On this channel, I post a lot of anti-MLM content. I'll link a playlist here and down below. This is my big anti-MLM playlist. Over 90 videos on it at this point, and I add new videos every single week. So if any of that kind of content does sound interesting to you, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, consider liking this video. All of those things really help to support my channel, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. For today's video, I'm bringing you MLM Horror Stories number 26. These are the real, true experiences of people who have had encounters with MLM companies that they have taken the time to write out and send to me, and I read them for a video. If you have your own MLM horror story to share with me, the instructions for how to do that are in the description box below. I have gone through my email and chosen 7 stories to read for today's video, so let's get into it. This story says, "Hi Hannah, my name is Erica. You can use my name, I don't mind. I've come across your channel recently after seeing you get a shout out on Suarez's Instagram stories. Your delivery of people's MLM horror stories is clear, considerate, and compassionate. I enjoy having your videos on in the background while washing dishes or getting ready for the day. Happy I found another anti-MLM creator. I've watched enough of your videos to know that no one needs to apologize for how long their story is. I love to write, so I hope you're ready for this story. I've been around MLMs most of my life without even knowing it. Cutco, Leah Sophia, LuLaRoe, Pampered Chef, 31, doTERRA, Tupperware, Color Street, Mary Kay, Avon, Scentsy, Beachbody, etc. I come from a small town and remember going to evening parties with my mom where products were put out and people bought them. Small towns seem to always equal MLM. I had never been in an MLM before and didn't think much of them until I got sucked into one of the OGs, Arbonne. In 2016, I developed a case of infectious colitis and it really messed up my digestive system. I felt bloated, gassy, nauseous, and had alternating bathroom habits. I felt sick all the time and it was starting to affect my whole life. I saw a gastroenterologist in February of 2019 and was diagnosed with IBS. I was told to follow a low FODMAP diet for 30 days and go from there. A list of foods not to eat and no guidance. Our healthcare system at its finest. I started working out at a gym in 2017 to get my fitness in check. I got to know a few of the coaches and followed them on social media. One coach made a lot of posts about workouts, healthy eating, and these things called fizz sticks. I used to be a 2 can of Coca-Cola a day girl, and I was looking to kick my soda habit. The coach would always say that fizz sticks can replace soda with its clean energy. I was curious and reached out to her about it. She gave me some information and then asked if I was interested in their 30 Days to Healthy Living program. I initially said no, but I'd think about the fizz sticks. She would check in with me either on DMs or in the gym, and I'd be non-committal. Her Instagram was curated in that boss babe lifestyle, and it looked like she had a great life. I was feeling vulnerable and was looking for a sense of community. I don't have many friends because I deal with social anxiety and I'm very introverted. I decided to go for it and asked about the 30 Days to Healthy Living. I did the 30 Days of Healthy Living program in April of 2019. I was surprised by the cost of the products, but I was told it was because the products were clean and pure. The Arbonne 30 Days to Healthy Living program is over $500. It used to be under $500. It was in the $400s somewhere, but they've since increased it. Surprise, surprise. And it's comprised of a whole bunch of supplements that you're supposed to take for 30 days straight to reset or kick off your healthy life. I did enjoy getting the different recipes since I'm interested in cooking. I had a protein shake for breakfast, 1 to 2 snacks, and 2 meals with actual food. I did lose some weight and was excited about it. Little did I know what I was in for. And I want to take this opportunity to say that it was February of 2019 that you were diagnosed with IBS, and then 2 months later in April is when you started the 30 Days to Healthy Living. I'm not sure if that becomes relevant in the remainder of your story or not, but I feel like it's important to point out to maybe give some context as to why you were looking for such a thing if you were in so much pain before and dealing with all kinds of digestive issues with the IBS, that maybe this 30-day program may have seemed like a good solution to those problems. I was working out at the gym where the coach worked and I could hear her talking to another girl about the program. I mentioned something about creating a pumpkin spice shake and what the program did for me. The coach overheard me and asked if I ever thought about being a consultant. I said no and didn't think I would be because of my social anxiety. She countered that the conversation I was having with the other girl sounded like a consultant talking, so I would be natural at it. I think that search for community weighed heavily on my brain, so after about a day, I decided to sign sign up as an independent consultant. Initially, I thought I was making friends since a lot of the other consultants and my upline's upline welcomed me with open arms and lots of love. I didn't know it at the time, but I was being love bombed. Yes, that's exactly what happens. When you join an MLM, the people in the upline are made aware that they've gained a new member, and everybody is encouraged to go and flood you with all this toxic positivity, all of this like fake admiration and fake encouragement to make you feel like you are in the right place and that you are cared about. I spent a lot of time on the Zoom calls, cold messaging people I knew and didn't know, and would beat myself up for not making the QV to promote. I only signed up one consultant and always felt uncomfortable talking about the business. My mom and some other family members bought products from me, which sounds like every other story. My husband was the first person to be concerned about how much money I was spending on products for myself. My upline would encourage us to slowly replace all of our products with Arbonne products, and I wanted to please her, so I followed suit. I am a recovering people pleaser. He also noticed my eating habits were becoming unhealthy. I refused to have anything but protein shakes for breakfast, and I was taking a bunch of supplements instead of eating real food. I became convinced that food was the reason my stomach issues were happening, so I was very restrictive on what I ate. My relationship with my husband was starting to suffer because I would be on the phone constantly with my upline or doing cold messages. I actually paid money to go to a local retreat at my upline's mentor's house. All this retreat contained was motivational speeches, love bombing, a lot of alcohol, and a clear distinction between the tops and the lowly consultants. I wanted to fit in so badly, but I felt like I was changing who I was in order to fit in. I want to talk about this paying money to go to an upline or a mentor's house for some kind of training. This is like a scam within the scam. People in the top ranks of these companies, not even just Arbonne, all across the board, are starting to get this complex that like they know all the answers, they have all the secrets to success, and that they can essentially sell the secrets to their downlines. So in addition to making money off the people in your downline based on their sales and recruitment volumes, you are now also making more money off of them by selling them a retreat. Selling them the fallacy that if they pay you this money to come and hear you talk, that they will know all of your secrets and they will have the keys to success that you do. It actually enrages me. I feel like I need to do a deep dive on that topic itself, because there is no such thing as a secret to success in these business models. Here's the secret: recruit the most people. That's it. That's all you need to know. Anything else is a complete fallacy, a complete lie. The fact that the people at the top of these companies are taking advantage of people's desperation to want to do well is sickening to me. I actually hit the first rank of district manager, and I hit it on the day my aunt passed away from cancer. I actually bought my rank by purchasing enough product to meet the QV requirements, and I'm a little ashamed to admit it. And I want you to know that a lot of people do. There is an alarming proportion of people in these companies who do not hit their ranks ethically. Allegedly, people do exactly what you're describing, and they pay their own money to hit their requirements to hit their rank. Which now, if we consider that within the context of the people at the top of the company selling their secrets, it makes it look like even more of a scam. I guess there's two ways you can get to the top of an MLM. Number one, you can recruit the most people. Number two, you can buy your way to the top. That was when my doubts about Arbonne started. The COVID-19 pandemic hit a couple months later, and my upline started promoting care packages of Arbonne products for doctors and nurses. I felt a little icky about it, but I posted and got some donations. One thing that stuck out to me was an urgent call from the upper ranks of Arbonne about COVID claims. I think this had to do with the FTC warning letter about Arbonne consultants making claims about the immune support supplement curing or protecting from COVID. During the pandemic, I had more time on my hands, so I decided to do a deep dive into Arbonne. That was when I came across the anti-MLM community. The creators I discovered first were Isabella Lanter, Kiki Chanel, Cat, and Deanna Mims. I went down the rabbit hole and they really started to open my eyes. I eventually decreased my ordering of the products and started posting about Pacifica Beauty on my Instagram stories. And for the record, Pacifica is not an MLM. My upline reached out to me and asked why I posted about this brand instead of Arbonne. I said something like, because I like it and I can post what I want. She didn't really have a response to that. I became so disillusioned with the company that I decided I wanted to leave. It felt like a breakup. I initially told my former clients, my husband, and a couple of my friends that I was ending the Arbonne business. I got support on that end. I then took all my Arbonne products out to the dumpster and threw them away. It felt so therapeutic, I even cried a bit. I eventually got the guts to tell my upline I was quitting. She seemed to take it well, at least I thought she did. Her upline then reached out to me and said that she was sorry I was, quote, leaving the family. That sounded sounded very cultish to me and gave me a weird vibe. I no longer speak to my former upline or anyone else I met through Arbonne, except for one girl who I remain friends with to this day. I'm happy to report I'm in a much better place physically, emotionally, and mentally. I worked with a dietitian, an educated one, on my chronic illness, and I am now seeing a therapist to tackle my self-sabotage. Who knew real food was much better for your mental health than icky, expensive MLM products? I'm embarrassed I spent money on a stupid MLM, but I choose to look at my time in Arbonne as a lesson. I've become more confident, I can keep my boundaries intact, and be comfortable in my own skin. I am a social worker by day and an ex-Arbonne Hun always. Thank you for sharing my story and for bringing to light the toxic practices of these companies. Ex-Arbonne Hun always. I love that. This is pretty much a class A MLM horror story. We have love bombing and toxic positivity. We have the control over what you can and cannot post. We have uplines charging for secrets. We have the encouragement that you need to switch all of your products to Arbonne products. We have false claims that Arbonne can cure or prevent COVID. We have rank buying. We have excommunication from your uplines once you leave. Like, this has everything in it. And that's why I love reading these stories, is because truth be told, change the name of the company, someone else has had that exact experience. And I somewhat feel that before the anti-MLM movement or before this type of video where people were given a platform to talk about their experiences, everyone was kind of living in their own bubble of like, oh, I must have been the fluke. I must have been the one that just didn't work hard enough or had a bad experience, and I was the exception to the rule. But how wild is it that we can read through this story and we can be like, yep, heard of that before. Yep, someone else told me they had that experience. Yep, predicted that. I feel like that's extremely telling. And the more people we have that are willing to speak out about their experiences, the better. So thank you for sending this in. This one says, hi Hannah. So my story is just a little different since I never technically got sucked into an MLM, but I still feel like people should hear about it. My coworker at the time was working for Unique and really wanted me to try their mascara. I've been luckily blessed with naturally long and thick lashes, so I'm always able to use whatever drugstore mascara I can afford at the time, and my lashes will still look long and thick. I've never really had any issues with any brand. She told me not to wear mascara to work one day because she wanted me to try her Unique mascara and asked if she could take pictures, which was totally fine with me. It ended up looking good, but definitely not anything amazing. It actually felt a little more dry, and overall my cheap Maybelline mascara actually gave me better results. But she took pictures anyway, plus I'm a people pleaser, so I gushed about how I loved how my lashes looked. I was really broke at the time, so I was thankful she didn't ask me to buy it from her. She just took the pictures and thanked me. The next day I wore my regular drugstore mascara and she asked if she could take more pictures because she was doing a comparison. I didn't really think anything of it and I let her take the pictures. That night on Facebook she posted my lashes and she uploaded the photos she took when I was wearing my drugstore mascara. I knew it because I was wearing different eyeshadow on the Unique mascara day and the photos were definitely from earlier that day. I figured she made a mistake but I didn't mention it. I was, and still am, very afraid of any confrontation, so I didn't say anything. I was just going to go along with it. The next day she asked me if I could do her a huge favor and tell our patients, we worked at a dental office, that I used Unique mascara when they would ask, which would actually happen often. I was a dental assistant, so I'd have patients looking up at me all day, so I always seemed to get asked if my lashes were real. I felt so weird about lying to people, but I was still fairly new to the office and didn't want to upset her. She was the office manager, the one who hired me even without dental experience, and gave me a chance, so I almost felt like I owed her. Anyway, at this point, even though I was broke, I offered to buy the mascara from her, but she actually said she preferred how my lashes looked with my drugstore mascara and that nobody would really know. So for about a year, she would call me to the front desk and have me show my lashes to whatever patient she was trying to pitch the business or product to. She'd have me say that I only use Unique and I wouldn't use anything else. The amount of people who said, okay, I'm sold, or wow, I need that mascara was absolutely insane. And even though I felt so incredibly guilty, I never ever said anything about it. And whenever a patient would ask me about my lashes, I'd tell them about it and basically send those people to her if they wanted to learn more. She eventually stopped selling it out of nowhere, never wanted to talk about it, and we never even spoke about it. All of that being said, even though I felt pressured to lie about my lashes, for some reason she never pressured me into buying her products or joining her business. She would make comments saying that I would be so successful if I ever wanted to work the business, but that's as far as it went. She was actually very sweet and a genuinely lovely person when she wasn't talking about Unique. So maybe it was the fact that I was only 19 to 20 at the time while she was double my age, and she probably cared enough about me not to get me involved. Anyway, I'm sorry if this is different, but I thought I'd share because the way she had me lying my face off about the mascara felt so wrong. I love your video so much. Thank you for doing what you do. Yes, this story is a little bit different, but I love it, and it still proves a wonderful point that things are not always as they seem. That's the case in a lot of these stories. It all kind of boils down to if these people don't sell this product or if they don't recruit people into the business, they don't get paid. They don't see the return on their investment. And unfortunately, there does kind of come a point where you are trying to sell and recruit at all costs. Even if that means a little fib here and there, even if that means an altered before and after photo, even if that means a slightly stretched story. Because honestly, you only make money if people want what you have. So then it kind of becomes a question of how far are you willing to go to make people believe that what you have is worth wanting. So for that reason alone, I love this story. This is extremely important to share. And it just goes to show that not everything you see on social media or not everything that you hear from an MLM rep may be the whole truth. I urge people to always think of it critically and always have that little skeptical lens, because very often things are not what they seem. This story says, "Hi Hannah, recently found your channel and I'm so glad more people are speaking out against the MLM business model, aka scam. Just so you know, this story mentions miscarriages and is from a Christian perspective in case that's an issue for your videos. Back in 2017, I was pregnant with my third baby after a devastating miscarriage, important info for later, and had just started staying home full time. Due to the nature of my miscarriage, I had taken a deep dive into harmful chemicals, specifying harmful here, and was learning more about natural options, etc. My sister sent me oils from Plant Therapy, which is not an MLM. I really like their company, and I really liked them. Fast forward to meeting a friend who was a rep for Young Living. We will call her Elle. I really leaned on her at this time in my life. I was new to staying home, afraid of another miscarriage, new to natural approaches, and trying to grow in my Christian walk. She was very supportive, and Elle was not pushy about oils or joining. She is a good friend. However, she did keep telling me Young Living was a Christian company and superior to other oils because of XYZ. Anyway, I did not fully understand what an MLM was. I lived on a military base, shocker, right? And every other spouse was peddling some sort of MLM. I don't know if this is common, but my religion was basically used to hook me. Yes, it is common. Very common. Elle would tell me about using oils when she prayed and how oils are in the Bible and God made the oils for us to be able to heal, etc. Not being very biblically literate at the time, I fell for it. I decided to buy a kit because I liked the oils and they were Christian, right? Right. I told my friend I'd buy a kit, but I was not selling. She said that was fine, but if I knew anyone else who wanted to buy one, I would get a bonus. Once I bought a kit, I was immediately added to the team Facebook page. At first, I didn't mind. There was a lot of DIY projects with oils, different research links, etc. My mother-in-law came to visit. She liked how my oils smelled and also bought a kit. I received the bonus and was like, oh, hey, maybe this wouldn't be too bad. So I started researching how I could promote it. At the time, you were required to make a monthly purchase to keep your wholesale account open. I was only ordering the minimum because I have a very financially savvy husband, thank God, and he said from the very beginning only to buy what I would actually use. And I did use the oils. I liked them, and I found them useful for a lot of things, but then it got weird. As it always does somehow. The leader of our group, S, would give us tips on marketing and recruiting, as well as answer questions that people had. She would always post warning posts saying things like, there's a rumor that Young Living did XYZ, avoid these videos because it's all lies. So I avoided them like a good little student. And that's what we call information control within cults. It's the avoidance of any information that goes against what you believe to be true about the company. This is a form of information control where you're encouraged to ignore, block out, avoid anything that might threaten the integrity of the company and convince you to leave. I started getting yellow flags when I noticed the cult mentality. It wasn't people should use oils because they're healthier. No, it was if it isn't Young Living, it's poison. Which confused me because isn't that like saying only Nike can make good shoes? S would point out how if we aren't making money, it's because we aren't living the oily life. Ew. Disgusting. Hate the term oily. Hate it. It's because we aren't living the oily life, we didn't want it enough, or we didn't care enough about people to share the truth. And no, she wasn't meaning the truth about Jesus. She meant that modern medicine is evil and oils are the cure to literally everything. Fortunately, I didn't care much about making money, and my husband had made it clear I wasn't to go crazy with this, quote unquote. They constantly would post how you needed to buy X, Y, and Z oil, always the most expensive ones, because it would change your life with one drop. I never bought any of these because, again, wise husband. The orange flags came with some of the health posts. People would post, what do you recommend for this illness? And other members would give suggestions. I'm fine with diffuse eucalyptus for a cold. However, I am not fine with use 4,737 oils in place of a child's ADHD medication. Or members saying that itching, burning, inflamed skin is a normal reaction because it's just your body detoxing. Yeah, your body is trying to detox whatever concoction you just slathered on it. Or, my favorite, you can't be allergic to essential oils. If you are allergic to lavender, you're probably allergic to lavender oil. And it just got worse. A mom in the group asked what to do for her baby under a year old who had RSV. And for those who don't know, this is a type of respiratory virus. They told this mother to give the baby oils orally. No, just no. When I commented that I think it's a terrible idea to consume oils at all, let alone a baby, I was hardcore drugged through the mud. When I brought it up to Elle, she told me that, quote, they are just going off of the book and from experience. I don't know if the mom actually did this, I hope not, but S deleted my comment. I can't count how many times oils were recommended to be taken internally, in capsules, under the tongue, or on your thumb pressed to the roof of your mouth. It didn't sit well with me. Or telling people that if they just use oils for insert any illness here, they wouldn't need those awful medications. My own baby, then only a month old, developed a staph infection due to antibiotics I had to take for mastitis. First, I was shamed for using antibiotics when I should have used oils. Then I was told not to use the antibiotic ointment my son's doctor prescribed because it's toxic, but to use Thieves. Thieves is a Young Living product. Mind you, this was a staph infection in his diaper area. Luckily, I had other natural-minded moms not in Young Living who straight up told me that that was insane. There is a place for medicine, obviously. But I won't lie, I panicked that maybe I would be poisoning my baby because of the amount of harassment I got from the loving Facebook group. Facepalm at how dumb that sounds. Remember how I said my religion was used to hook me? Right, so even though the yellow and orange flags were going off, I stuck around because I'm helping people use a natural alternative because oils are biblical. I wasn't really selling many kits, but I was brought to several parties to make the parties bigger. Insert eye roll here. Well, I was to go to a party where they were bringing the ultimate kit. The oils of the Bible. This kit is insanely expensive and comes with some out-of-context book on how oils were used in the Bible and what scriptures mention them, etc. I was so excited. They didn't call it a party. They said it was to be an in-home worship service. So looking back, I feel sick to think how many military spouses came thinking they were just getting together with other believers for worship, when really they were being set up for a Young Living sales pitch. Anyways, there was a long presentation about the oils of the Bible, and by this time I had gotten a little more biblically literate. And the things they said, basically talking about the oils like they were magic potions, wasn't sitting well with me. So I decided to do what I always do when really unsure. I called my dad. My dad is now a pastor, so obviously he had more biblical knowledge than I did. When I told him about the oils of the Bible kit, he was horrified and told me I needed to get away from that because they were literally making merchandise out of scriptures and definitely not biblically accurate. I still wasn't ready to leave, but the final straw and the giant red flag. One day, S posted one of her how to share oils posts, and she recommended posting prayer requests on our page. our church's page, any Bible study groups we were in, and then recommending oils for people's requests via private message. I was shocked and angry. How disturbing is that? Preying on people who are looking for comfort and using prayer to peddle oils? I told Elle this was wrong, and she tried to persuade me that it wasn't because we were just giving people a Christian solution. Pretty sure Zero Apostles said, just give them some lemon oil. No. That same day, someone posted about oils for grief as their friend or relative, I don't remember, recently had a miscarriage and was obviously having a hard time coping. Remember I mentioned my own miscarriage? Well, of course my heart went out to this woman, and I commented recommending websites, Facebook groups, music, etc. that had helped me, not oils. S reminded me that she was asking for oils, and then another woman replied that if only myself and the girl were living the oily life before, we could have prevented our miscarriages. Just no, all the no. I was done. That is an absolutely despicable thing for somebody to say. After that, I went down the rabbit hole of who the heck is Young Living, and yeah, more no. I still have my Young Living diffuser only because it hasn't died, and I quite happily use plant therapy oils for things, and also medicine when needed because I have a brain and can research things for myself. And I am not so self-entitled to believe that doctors just don't know the magic of oils. I still did not understand that I was in an MLM until I watched that LuLaRoe documentary, and now I'm quite embarrassed for not seeing it for what it was. I'm glad I was not desperate for money because I can see how people would fall for it when the top people look like they live such glamorous lives. I'm also glad my husband was wise enough to say, you can't go crazy with this. Thanks so much for your videos. You're doing a great thing. I like this story because you are bringing up the connection between religion, Christianity, and oil companies. It is such a convoluted and intricate topic. I can't possibly begin to get into it right here, but I will say that I have been compiling some evidence, and I do plan on making a deep dive style video in the future about this connection specifically in Young Living. It is very, very alarming for all of the reasons that you've presented. Perhaps the most alarming reason is that there are people in these companies that believe oils can cure everything, and that oils are an alternative for modern medicine, which I agree with you is not always the case. I do think that using oils can be beneficial for some things, especially within the realm of aromatherapy, but it starts to get a little tricky when you have people trying to convince you that your baby doesn't need antibiotics for their staph infection and that your baby could be cured via oils. It's a completely unsubstantiated claim that they are not allowed to be making, but yet these kinds of claims are rampant in unsupervised, unregulated Facebook groups. And to an extent, it's up to each individual within those groups to decide if they believe these claims or not, and that's where we get into really dangerous territory. Thankfully, you acknowledged all of those warning signs and red flags, and you did not fall for it. This story, in the subject line, it says, MLM horror story, drive-through sales pitch. And I will take this opportunity to say that in the past, I've always said, just put MLM horror story in the subject line. Please continue to do that. That way it gets filtered into the right folder and I don't accidentally misplace it. But lately, people have been putting MLM horror story dash a super quick one-line hook as to what their story is about, and I found that to be extremely helpful because I don't pre-read these stories, and so to have a little tiny blurb about like, this is what my story is about, that can really help me when compiling certain stories together for a single video to make sure that I'm covering a variety of topics. So just something to think about if you are going to send a horror story, adding that into the subject line could be really helpful. Hi Hannah, I'm a new subscriber and I watched quite a few of your MLM horror story videos before remembering that I have a great story of my own. Let me set the stage for you. It's around 2012 and I'm a full-time college student working at Starbucks. That day they had me working the drive-thru by myself, so I'm super busy taking and punching in orders, grabbing food and pastries, taking payments, passing out orders, etc. I finished up with one customer and the next car pulled up and inside was the most fake enthusiastic person I'd ever met. I greet her, ring up her order, and when I hand her her card back, she says, "Hey, have you tried that new wrap thing?" Thinking she's actually talking about something relevant, I assume she means the new breakfast wrap we have, so I respond, "Oh, the new chicken sausage wrap?" She does a fake laugh and says, "No, this wrap thing," and hands me a flyer. I'm on my headset taking an order, but I quickly glance at it and see that it looks like some sort of waist binder for weight loss. At this point, I realize that this lady has the nerve to come to my place of work while I'm incredibly busy and try to sell me something. I'm absolutely shocked, but I contain my composure. After I finish with the order I'm taking, I say, "Oh, no, I haven't heard of it." With her big, fake, cheerful smile, she says, "It's great if you have a few pounds to lose." Now I'm upset. Not only was I borderline underweight at the time, but I'm appalled that this person thinks it's acceptable to go up to a stranger, especially while they're at work, and imply that they, quote, "have a few pounds to lose." I look at her stone-faced and say, "I don't have a few pounds to lose." And she keeps up her fake smile and says, "Well, it's also great if you have a little bit of cellulite." I keep my cold expression and say, "I don't have any cellulite." I try to hand the flyer back and she says, "Oh no, keep that and give it to one of your coworkers." I give her her order and she flashes me her big fake smile and drives off. I immediately threw it in the trash. It's been 10 years and it still blows my mind that someone would do that. So I'm not sure if you remember the name of the company, but I'm telling you right now that there's a 99.9% chance this was an It Works consultant. I'm pretty sure that Jessica Hickson has talked about in a few of her videos that it was like a thing in the company that people were trained on to just call it that wrap thing. Almost as a way to imply that like people were talking about it and it was like a hot topic and you were out of the loop if you haven't heard of it or tried it yet. That was intentionally used as the opening line to be like, "Hey, have you tried this yet?" To make you go, no, what are you talking about? And by way of doing that, you would open them up to their pitch. But you bring up two wonderful points: that it is inappropriate to pitch people at their place of work while they're supposed to be engaged in some kind of work that they're being paid for. And number two, it's also highly inappropriate to assume that everybody has weight to lose or has cellulite to get rid of. It's ridiculous in its own right to claim that a wrap can do either of those things, but it's just an extra level of ridiculousness to assume that the stranger in the drive-thru window of Starbucks needs to or wants to lose weight. And just think of how triggering that could be if that person on the receiving end of that comment was battling an eating disorder, had body dysmorphia, or in any kind of way had an unhealthy relationship with their thoughts about their body. It is not acceptable to just be springing that on somebody when they least expect it. For example, they are working their job in the Starbucks drive-thru and they're not being paid to deal with this. This next story isn't anything too terrible, but I think it's a great example of how these people will say anything or take advantage of anyone to make a sale. About 5 years ago, a good friend of mine said she's hosting a party for a friend who sells candles. I don't know much about MLMs at this point, but I knew the person selling something would obviously want us to buy something. I told her that I knew I wasn't going to buy anything, I was broke, and I'm also very particular about scents, but she insisted her friend said that it was fine and she wanted me to come anyway. Side note, I don't know if this is typical, but my friend bought all of the food and drinks for the party, which looking back seems kind of crazy. Can you fill me in on whether this is the norm for these parties or if the MLM hunt is normally expected to provide this? So I will say that the case obviously differs scenario to scenario, person to person, but in my experience, based on what I've seen and heard from other people's stories, is that there's two main people within an MLM party, okay? There's the host and then there's the sales rep. And it appears that the expectation is that the host, so in this case your friend, is the one who does the hosting. They provide the location, the refreshments, they're in charge of inviting people, and it's their responsibility to put on what would otherwise be just a normal party, a normal gathering. And then the sales rep from the MLM is the person that comes in and provides the demo, provides the samples, provides the pitch. And typically, if it's deemed to be a successful party where the sales rep does make sales, then there's usually some kind of reward or compensation to the host, whether that's free product or a discount on product. And that's the most common way that I've seen it done. So this might not be the case for every single MLM party ever, but I'm not surprised to hear that your friend, being the host, was financially responsible for everything that went into that party. Anyway, my friend is incredibly kind and did this despite being a new mom and on a very tight budget. I end up going and it's a half decent time at best. The gal is not too pushy and I don't remember her trying to recruit us. It was mostly just smelling candle samples, looking at different products, etc. My friend excitedly points points out this cute candle holder she's getting for free as a gift for hosting. There it is. It's your friend's job to host the party, but if the party goes well, then she gets something as a reward. I'm excited for her, even if it doesn't feel like a fair trade for all the money she spent on snacks and beverages. A day or two after the party, she disappointedly tells me that she isn't getting the free candle holder after all. Apparently, the gal hosting didn't tell her that there was a certain amount of product that needed to be purchased at the party in order for her to get the free gift. We're both frustrated that she conveniently left that out, and I feel terrible for my friend who had been so excited about it. Thank you so much for the content you make and your kind approach to all of it. Hugs to you and the kitties. Yeah, this is a very cringy situation. I think MLM parties are extremely weird and strange and uncomfortable because, as I already mentioned, it's the host's job to host the party, to invite the friends, to select the group of people in attendance, and then it's the MLM rep's job to actually close the sales. And so there's this really awkward balance between like the MLM rep giving a good pitch versus the host inviting good people, meaning people who are likely to actually purchase the thing being pitched. And that's not cool that the MLM rep didn't make it clear that there was like a sales threshold that you had to meet at the party for her to get her compensation for hosting. I don't know, just in my opinion, I would absolutely hate to be a guest at a party like that because there's just this overarching pressure of like the guests need to spend money and the host is spending money and the MLM rep needs to sell things to make money. It turns what could be a really lovely gathering between friends into something that could potentially be very uncomfortable with money as the motivation behind everything. Thank you for sending this story, and let this be a PSA to us all that pitching your Starbucks barista is not a cute look. This story says, "Hi Hannah, I was so delighted to find your channel and others doing the great work of exposing the scams that are MLM businesses. I'm 50 years old and was turned off by MLMs ever since my mom joined one around 1980. She had just had my little brother, her third and last child. He was unexpected and she was exhausted and depleted, as are all new mothers. My aunt, her older sister, had gotten involved with Shackley, a vitamin company that also, surprise, surprise, expanded into makeup and other personal care products. My aunt sold my mom mass quantities of vitamins, shakes, and other stupid stuff to help her get her energy back after having a baby. My mom and aunt became true believers in this company and the supposed health benefits of taking massive amounts of vitamins. We weren't allowed to call them pills because that sounded too much like pharmaceutical medicine. We had to call them supplements, which at the time was a very weird word that no one used. My aunt recruited my mom to sell as well, no surprise there either. I remember my mom being really excited when she mailed in her recruitment paperwork. She credited Shackley with helping her get her body back after having her third child. My mom and aunt also generally became very suspicious of mainstream medicine at this time and also into healthy eating. I have always suspected that my mom's perceived health improvements probably just resulted from eating healthier and the natural healing that time brings after having a baby, but she was convinced it was Shackley. That's something that I always wonder about too, because presumably the people who are taking an interest in and purchasing health and wellness products of any kind, it's safe to say they're looking to make some kind of change to better their health. So sure, you're starting to take these Shackley supplements, but are you also eating better? Are you also being more active? Are you also sleeping better? Are you also drinking more water? Are you also taking part in some kind of mental health service? There is no magic pill that is going to give you peak health. It's a combination of all kinds of different factors, so I always have to look at this with a skeptical eye. For example, Jessica Hickson. She was in It Works, and she has this photo of her circulating around still to this day because it's property of the company. It's a before and after photo of her. And the narrative that's being spread around is that the It Works products, the It Works wraps, are what gave her those before and after results. And she's told me personally, she's like, the before photo was right after I had my second baby, and the after photo was taken months and months after she changed her eating habits completely. She was doing CrossFit, and yes, also using the It Works products, but the results cannot be attributed to the products alone. My aunt managed to get into the business fairly early and did reasonably well financially. She earned cars and other bonuses, and her basement was packed with Shackley crap. My mom's business never really took off, but she spent crazy amounts of money over the years on vitamins. Shackley would send catalogs of all their products and their alleged health benefits, and my mom would just order away. I remember heated discussions between my parents about all the money she was spending. She had an actual chest of vitamin pills and would take them religiously. As I got older and learned more and more about health myself, I became became increasingly troubled by how deep she was into all of this pseudoscience. I read articles in reputable medical journals and newspapers about the actual risks of taking mass doses of vitamins and minerals. If you take more than you need of certain nutrients, you'll just pee them out. But others can build up in your system or throw the balance of nutrients in your body out of whack. Sorry, I know that in itself isn't a sound scientific explanation, but in layperson's terms, it works to explain the effects of taking vitamins in isolation. Vitamins and minerals require cofactors to be properly assimilated by the body. Without the necessary cofactors, taking these nutrients is, at best, a waste of money. At worst, it's harmful. I would try to explain this stuff to my mom, but she was completely unwilling to even consider that her Shaklee vitamins were anything but miraculous. Fast forward many years, I was with my mom in the pre-op room at the hospital. She had broken yet another bone and needed surgery. My mom had developed osteoporosis despite taking massive volumes of calcium for decades. Osteoporosis runs in our family, and I've since learned that the benefits of taking calcium are limited. Women have significant bone loss after menopause. It results from the drop in estrogen. Popping calcium all your life isn't necessarily going to protect you. That's a little PSA, but I digress. The pre-op nurse asked my mom what medications she was on and the names and doses of any supplements she might be taking. My mom starts rattling off the list of all the stuff she was taking. The nurse was horrified. She kept saying, "Oh my God, oh my God." She actually went to check with the surgeon to see if they could postpone the surgery because she explained that an excess of one of the vitamins my mom was taking could inhibit her blood from clotting properly. My mom kept poo-pooing any risks. I could tell that she was shaken by the nurse's reaction, but she kept saying, "It's such good stuff." My mom really believed taking mass doses of vitamins and minerals would only bring her good health and no harm. Absolutely nothing would convince her otherwise. It was so crazy. I even told her once that her devotion to Shaklee was like a religion. Still, no dice. My mother passed away from a stroke 2 years ago. She was just shy of her 75th birthday. She was not the picture of health in her later years. She never exercised consistently despite my repeated efforts to get her moving. Her mobility suffered tremendously as she got older. Despite never drinking or smoking, eating a reasonably good diet, and taking massive amounts of vitamins and minerals, she wasn't an especially healthy person. She did not live a particularly long life. I cannot see that taking all that crap did her any good. Did it bring her physical harm? Probably, but at the very least, it drained her bank account significantly. She spent a lot of money with Shaklee for 40 years. It makes me sick when I think of all that she and my dad could have done with that money. And here's the thing, even if you are a person who does truly believe that supplements and vitamins and minerals are the pinnacle of good health and that you need to be taking them, there are so many cheaper options than an MLM. MLM supplements aren't regulated by anything. The FDA doesn't regulate supplements in general. However, there are certain supplement brands that are verified by USP, which means that those supplements have been independently tested and they are verified that they do contain the nutritional value that the label says they contain. So it's basically like we took this vitamin, we tested it out, and yes, what the bottle says is in it is actually in it. To an extent, I can understand why people would think that taking vitamins and supplements would be good for their health. I think that everybody should talk to their doctor before taking any kind of supplement, but if that is the route that you feel like you want to go down, I would recommend that you do it under the guidance of a healthcare professional. I would recommend you look into products that are verified by USP, and I would recommend that you do not join an MLM or trust that the people who are trying to sell you these MLM products actually know what they're doing. If any good came of my mother's devotion to the cult of Shaklee, it made me very wary of multi-level marketing schemes. I have seen countless friends go down that tragic path, and I have never wanted any part of it. I briefly dated a guy whose family was into Amway, and I told him whatever happened with the two of us, I would never be the devoted Amway wife. I can't say it's why I broke up with him, but it certainly didn't make him more attractive to me. I have occasionally bought MLM products from friends to support them, but in recent years, I've stopped even doing that. The sooner they realize their business is going nowhere, the better. Lastly, before I go, I wanted to speak briefly on the issue of vulnerability. I listened to one of the Top Fails videos where the Huns took umbrage with the idea that they are preying on vulnerable people. There's apparently some idea in people's heads that being vulnerable means you are pathetic. Well, I'm here to say that's ridiculous. We are all vulnerable at various points in our lives. It's all part of being human. There is no shame in acknowledging you are vulnerable. I really think this is why so many victims of MLM recruitment are new mothers. All new mothers are vulnerable because new mothers are sleep deprived. Anytime we go through a season of transition, we we are vulnerable. When we are lonely, we are vulnerable. Can we please destigmatize vulnerability? I recently went through menopause and started buying all these face creams and crap. I realized later what I was doing. I was vulnerable. I probably wasted some money, but at least I didn't get hooked into a scam, so I'll call it a win. Thank you, Hannah, for all you're doing. I'm glad to support you and your channel. I love this last paragraph, and I have gone down that tangent multiple times on my channel about how being vulnerable does not mean you are weak. Vulnerable is not synonymous with weak, incapable, undeserving, pathetic. All it means is that there are outside factors that make you more susceptible to certain things. And as that applies to the conversation of MLMs, when you are presented with something that claims to fix every social, emotional, financial, or health problem that you have, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to explore that a little further? That does not mean that you are weak or stupid or pathetic, as you said here. All it means to be vulnerable is that you're more susceptible to something. We're all vulnerable for any number of reasons at lots of different times throughout our lives. And the difference is when people educate themselves and they arm themselves with the knowledge of how these MLM companies are dangerous and damaging, those people are less vulnerable and they are less likely to get involved with it. This next story says, "Hello, Hannah. First off, I wanted to say that I love your channel. I stumbled upon your MLM Horror Stories playlist while cleaning the house tonight. I want to preface this email by saying that in high school, I was unaware of what MLMs were. However, I was surrounded by them. Sorry in advance for such a long email. During my freshman year, I decided to enter into my first state pageant. My cousin, we will call her TJ, was the outgoing state title holder for that year. My mom was a very dedicated pageant mom as the years went on. My first year, we were walking in blind. The summer before freshman year started, my mom told me that one of my friend's moms was a sales consultant for a makeup company. Turned out to be Mary Kay. She offered a free makeover to show me how to do my makeup. Obviously, she wasn't a makeup artist, so that never went anywhere. I've never talked to this woman's daughter, even though we attended the same junior and senior high school, and to this day, I'm still curious on how my mom even met her mom. My sophomore year, I attended a church camp for the church I was born and raised in. It was an all-girls church camp. One of the ladies from my specific church building was at camp this year. She ran her own essential oils business. She would always bring up cases upon cases of oils to church as an in case of emergency kit. This particular year at camp, we had to do an essential oil activity where we were to disclose issues, medical, mental, etc. with her, and she would concoct an essential oil and sugar scrub with us to help with whatever issues we needed the oils to help with. I was always very weirded out by this. I am weirded out by this because what is an adult woman doing at a children's church camp telling them that they can be claimed by an essential oil sugar scrub? Are you kidding me? Something about that is really disturbing to me. My junior year of high school, I was consistently working out with the National Guard 3 times a week, as well as attending drills 1 weekend a month, as I was enlisting the following year. We worked out to T25 and did P90X workouts. I will say to this day, those were still some of my favorite workouts, especially having my battle buddies alongside of me for motivation. It wasn't until the pandemic hit that I realized it was a part of the Beachbody kit. Thankfully, I had the knowledge that MLMs were harmful when I realized that. Otherwise, I may have gotten sucked into that. I dodged a bullet. I've mentioned this in a few other videos, but I actually had the Beachbody Insanity program. Beachbody did not always used to be an MLM. I think it was in 2014 that they added in the MLM component. But before that, they were just DVD workout programs that you could buy through an infomercial on TV. And that's how I knew about Beachbody. That's how I got introduced to the programs. And I love the Insanity program. Honestly, I did. But as we know, the issue with MLM companies isn't always within the products. It's within the business model in which they're sold. They're not sold on infomercials anymore. They're sold through people who join a business opportunity and peddle the workout programs and recruit other people to peddle the workout programs. During my senior year, I had 1 more year of eligibility as a teen for the state pageant. TJ was now in the Miss division and I was competing for a chance at making it to Miss USA. We got to compete alongside each other. That summer leading up to the competition, she provided me with an insane workout and meal plan. By the end of the summer, it consisted of me only consuming protein shakes 3 to 5 a day to be exact, not being able to eat past 2 p.m. and religiously taking Juice Plus. Oh my God. I later realized that was also associated with an MLM. That led to a 4-year-long eating disorder where I was only consuming protein shakes, celery, and taking Juice Plus. It put my body into shock maybe a handful of times, but beauty is pain, right? Wrong. Not when it comes to health. Again, children. We're talking about legal children under the influence of MLM products given to them by people who are not qualified to be giving it to them. And to hear that this spiraled into a 4-year-long eating disorder is very, very upsetting to me, because you have to wonder if the compulsion to take these MLM products had anything to do with that, was any contributing factor. After high school, I was still unaware of what an MLM was. From what people had told me, it was a side hustle on top of your regular 9-to-5. The MLMs that people have attempted to recruit me for have been Mary Kay, It Works, which most certainly does not work, Beachbody, Monet, Paparazzi, Thrive, Unique, and Lip Sense, which may go by something else now. Lip Sense is the product range of the MLM company Synergens. Lip Sense is the name of the lipsticks that company sells. Thank the Lord up above that he steered me clear every single time. My soon-to-be mother-in-law, prior to finding out what an MLM actually was, had given me gifts from both LuLaRoe and Avon. Probably a year into exploring the anti-MLM world, my mother-in-law called me and reminded me of some party that was the next day. I don't recall telling her that I would attend, but she said that I told her I would be there. So I showed up. Let me tell you, anxiety is on a whole other planet when you have to sit by your future in-laws and are pressured into talking in depth about your sex life. If you haven't guessed it by now, it was a pure romance party. Oh, I don't even know what I would do. I feel like I'm blushing of embarrassment for you. Thankfully, the 3 items that I was lucky enough to bring home, my mother-in-law paid for. I wasn't about to give that lady a single penny of my hard-earned money. I was extremely against MLMs at this point, and had I known what this party was actually for, cough cough, I would have gotten the Rona. I just read ahead a little bit and I need to go back and give a trigger warning. We're about to talk about unaliving oneself. My dive into anti-MLM started in November of 2020. My sister took her life due to some mental health struggles. While having to clean out her apartment, I realized that there were a few drawers in her bathroom that were filled with essential oils. I don't know what essential oil company they came from, but one of them got to her. I never got the chance to ask her if she was part of the MLM that they came from, or if she thought she was just a customer to whoever this low-life piece of is. We shall call her Karen. Karen found both my mom and I on Facebook shortly after my sister's funeral service. I guess a funeral service meant money in her eyes. She would post photos of my sister to her personal page and tag us in them, stating how much of a loss this was to her. I was struggling and still struggle living with the continued thoughts that as a big sister, I could have and should have done more. Karen attempted to personally message my mom one day. For obvious reasons, my mom wasn't ready to entertain a conversation with someone she didn't know in regards to the passing. I took it upon myself to message her on Facebook. Come to find out, she was wondering how much money we got from my sister's life insurance and was wanting to, quote, help us through our grieving process by providing us with essential oils that would assist us in grieving easier. Oh, hell no. Nothing screams low life like a hunbot stalking your Facebook and trying to scam you out of life insurance money that ended up going towards funeral expenses and a celebration of life. I pray to God that Karen is out of the MLM world, and I hope she feels like forever for trying to get any sort of financial benefit from this loss. Moral of all of these experiences, they aren't all they're cracked up to be. Not only are they harmful to people who are in the business themselves, but it can be extremely harmful to those who have no desire to ever work for one. If you've read this or shared it, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to do so. Keep up the amazing work, Hannah. It will pay off, and I pray that it rescues one hunbot at a time. There is no excuse. There are no words that I can appropriately express right here. That's gotta be one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard, that there is this seemingly stranger that comes to you and your family and is like, hey, so how much money did you get off of the life insurance policy, and do you have some to spare? I sell oils, would you like to have some? There's just no excuse for that. That is vile and inexcusable behavior. As somebody who's also lost people very close to me in this fashion, I want to say that I'm extremely sorry for your loss, and I will also apologize on the behalf of this essential oil rep that she saw this situation as an opportunity to pitch you. That's disgusting and it's not acceptable. Thank you for sending in this story, and we can only hope that someday down the road this woman will realize that what she did was wrong. This story says, hi Hannah, please keep me anonymous, always, unless you specify otherwise. I don't know what I did to be blessed by one of your videos on my recommended feed, seeing as I have never watched anti-MLM videos on YouTube before, but boy am I grateful. I've nearly run out of videos of yours to watch, and I think I finally finally have the courage to share my story. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I grew up surrounded by MLMs and never considered them a bad thing. My grandmother has been a part of Mary Kay, Avon, Scentsy, Pampered Chef, Kirby, and is still a part of Plexus, Young Living, and Paparazzi all at the same time. My mother has been involved in most of those as well as Zaya, Monate, Color Street, or Jamberry, I can't remember, Cabby, Herbalife, and I wouldn't be surprised if I forgot some. My sister currently works at an Herbalife nutrition club. I know that you can understand how being around all of these MLMs my entire life made me susceptible to a new one, World Ventures. A little background about who I was when I joined. I had just left an extremely abusive relationship and moved across the state to escape from it at 17. We were engaged until he threatened my life and I finally asked my family for help. I'm so glad that you did that. I was settling into my new town and I had gotten a job at Topgolf and was starting fresh. Topgolf had an extremely fun and upbeat environment for all of the employees and was actually a really fun place to work. There was one employee though that was extra fun to be around. He was so charismatic, everyone wanted to be his friend. We will call him Joe. You can imagine my excitement when he asked to get lunch with me before our shift one day. We planned to meet at a lunch spot close to Topgolf. I was a little surprised when I saw him walk in with a female friend and a laptop. Not surprised that she was female, this wasn't a date, I just didn't know someone else was coming, but this will be important later. Without even getting something to eat, Joe and his friends started the World Ventures presentation. I drank the Kool-Aid hard. It was a promise of world travels, luxury hotels, free flights, and major income. I saw none of the red flags and only the promise of an amazing new life, the thing that I was trying to create. Absolutely amazing point. When you are presented with all of these seemingly perfect, wonderful things that you believe will help you achieve the life that you're seeking, it's incredibly easy to just kind of get wrapped up in that and maybe not necessarily see or pay attention to some of the red flags, especially when you are in this kind of position that you're describing, sort of this transitionary period between the life that you had into the life that you're trying to create for yourself on a new and better path. I signed up that day and immediately started working my business. I spent probably 20 hours a week hanging out with Joe and sitting in on his presentations to other potential recruits to train. Joe and his uplines all recommended going to do presentations in pairs, preferably opposite sex pairs, which I see as really dangerous and problematic now. The purpose was to try and appeal as widely as you could to whoever your audience was, and having both a male and female perspective helped people see the opportunity, I guess. Remember when I mentioned the friend coming with Joe when he presented the opportunity to me? Now I was doing this with Joe and not getting paid, mind you. I remember being with Joe and him getting a text from a downline and immediately saying, "We got a lead," and us jumping in the car to go to a presentation like we were the Scooby-Doo gang on their way to crack a mystery. It was an adrenaline rush at first. I thought I was such a boss babe going to recruit and make a ton of money and be this awesome traveling influencer. Something you briefly touched on here that I want to elaborate on is you were picking up on the strategies that were used on you as you were using them on other people. This whole idea of having a male and female presenter in a pair when going to pitch to somebody, now in hindsight it's becoming apparent to you that that is an intentional strategy. And I love that you're bringing that up because that's something I often wonder about, is if people ever have that realization. Because obviously there's this whole system of different tactics to get you into the MLM, and then once you're in, you're being trained on those exact same tactics. So I often think about if that ever clicks for people. Clearly it clicked for you, but I have to imagine that it doesn't click for everybody. But it became really uncomfortable really fast. We never knew the people we were going to present to. They were always acquaintances of someone on Joe's downline, and they were always surprised we were at their door. We would give the presentation and then be really pushy about joining. I remember when I was practicing to do the presentations on my own, one time I said, "What do you think?" at the end. And Joe said, no, don't ever say that. Say, "So, are you ready?" We went to a stranger's house every single day. I think back to how many horrible situations I put myself in. I was usually the only woman with a man I didn't know very well, walking into strangers' homes who were usually men, all for a job I wasn't even compensated for. People in Joe's uplines were always having group presentation meetings, seriously all the time. Like every night of the week, you could find a group presentation to take a lead lead to. I was so desperate to finally sign someone up after almost 2 months of not recruiting anyone that I pulled up the number of someone I worked with at Topgolf who had been asking to hang out with me for a while now. I didn't really want to hang out with her, but I knew if I texted her to hang, she would show up wherever I told her to. I cannot stress how horrible I feel about this now. This was so wrong of me on so many levels. I'm so sorry for what I did. I texted her and made her think we were going to eat at a Mexican restaurant. She texted me that she was there and I told her I was in the back of the restaurant. This was where the presentation was taking place. There were about 30 people there and I was already sitting with some of Joe's uplines when she walked in. She saw me and waved with a confused look on her face. I ashamedly waved back. She only stayed for about 10 minutes. Once she realized what it was, she left. I got a text that night from her telling me what a horrible thing I did. I deserved every word. I only lasted about a week after that. I hated who I had become. I have to commend you for this ownership and for this realization. I get horror stories all the time of people unknowingly being roped into an MLM pitch, of people saying, I thought I was just going to lunch with a friend, or I thought I was just going to a girls' night out. And it isn't until they show up there that they realize what they've gotten themselves involved in. And I just want to show my appreciation that you have this realization and that you're taking ownership over your actions in the past. And I think this goes to show the point that I try to make very apparent in my videos, is that I don't think that people in MLMs are inherently bad or that they're inherently trying to be manipulative. It's situations exactly like this where you're like, you know what? I haven't recruited anybody in about 2 months. I know that's what I have to do if I'm going to be successful. Here's this acquaintance I have. She would probably show up to a pitch. And that's the line of thinking that you go down, even though you recognize that it's maybe not the most moral or kind thing to do, but it's what you feel you have to do. And so I really want to emphasize the fact that not all of the blame can be placed on the people in these companies. Some of the blame needs to be placed on the business structure and the way that people are forced to act if they're going to be successful or make any money at all. I did go to one of their conferences about 2 hours away and I saw so many concerning things. It was straight up a cult. Everyone in the business was huge into the prosperity gospel, a works-based system that tells you God always wants you to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. And if you aren't, then you don't have enough faith. Think Joel Osteen. If anyone wants a more in-depth look at the prosperity gospel and its issues, I would recommend the documentary American Gospel. Anyway, I was only in it for about 2 months, but I lost about $1,000, some friends, and my dignity. I've steered clear of MLM since, but only since watching your videos can I articulate my reasoning for doing so. I saw on a pro MLM page the other day a quote that read, "A little extra money is nice, but it's nothing compared to who you'll become." That upset me so much because I know who I became was a greedy, selfish narcissist who had no regard for others' feelings and only saw people as dollar signs. It was well-intentioned, I guess. I thought the people who I would recruit would also become wealthy and happy, so in my head it justified my poor treatment of them. I feel so horrible about this now. I hope that one day my mom, grandma, or sister will see the light and I'll be able to help them out, but I know it would just be a huge battle and bridge burner if I mentioned it now. Thank you for all the work that you do. You've impacted my life greatly and have helped me overcome the shame I've felt from being in my MLM. And that last statement is why I make these videos. That really makes my whole day. Thank you for saying that. I also want to reiterate how impressive your self-awareness is throughout this entire story, and that you are able to recognize how those actions were wrong in the time, but also that those actions deserve to be considered within the context of everything else going on. And you were just acting in the best way that you could with the information that you had at the time. Thank you again for sharing this story. I think that you provide a perspective that a lot of people could benefit from hearing. And that, my friends, is all I have for you for this MLM Horror Stories video. Thank you again to everyone who sent in their story. And if you do have your own story that you would like to send in to me, check out the description box for instructions on how to do that. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I will see you in my next one real soon.